Okay, thank you. Morning, students. In the last class, we have seen about the embryology of the lens. And I told you that actually the development of the lens is from neuroectoderm and also surface ectoderm and its derivatives and mesoderm. And we have shown you all these diagrams. And this is actually the embryology of the lens. It contains actually the capsule and also the cortex, adult nucleus, infantile nucleus, fetal nucleus, and finally the embryonic nucleus. So I also told you that actually during the 4th week of intrauterine life, optic pit develops into optic vesicle and lens plate forms. And at 1 month, lens plate and lens vesicle, they take their shape. And 7th week, actually formation of embryonic nucleus of the lens starts occurring. And the 3rd month, actually the fetal nucleus starts to develop up to the birth. And I have already told you that the lens is actually a biconvex, transparent, crystalline lens, and its diameter is from 8 to 9 millimeters, and thickness varies from the age to, depending upon the age. At birth, actually, it's about 3.5 millimeters. In the adult, actually, it is about 5 millimeters at the extremes of the life. And also, it changes with accommodation. There are two surfaces, anterior and posterior surfaces, where they meet. Actually, it is known as equator. And the weight of the lens also varies. It is around 135 milligrams at birth and at 258 to 260 milligrams at the extremes of the age, around 80 years of age, 60 to 80 years of age. And total dioptric power of the lens is around approximate average is around 18, 16 to 20 diopters. Accommodative power at birth is around 14, 16 diopters. At 25 years of age, it's 7 to 8 diopters. At 50 years, when actually we rather attain actually presbyopia, it's around 1 to 2 diopters. That's the reason actually we will not be able to see the near objects or near print clearly. And we are supposed to wear an addition of 2 diopters plus 2 diopters or convex lenses for proper reading. And I have already shown you this lens capsule and everything. And I told you also the fetal life, the lens is almost spherical and gradually it becomes flatter, and in the adult life it's biconvex lens. Lens capsule, all these things we have already seen. Anatomy, physiology, nucleus, we have seen all these things. So I told you also the definition of cataract. Any opacity in the lens or its capsule, whether developmental or acquired, is known as actually cataract. So the word cataract actually dates back to the Middle Ages, where when actually they used to think that cataract is because of an abnormal humor which passes in front of the light, in front of the lens. So it actually is derived from a Greek word known as cataractus, so which means that actually is abnormal humor. So later on, when we started having the clear knowledge about anatomy and physiology of the lens, we come to know that actually it's opacification of the already formed fibers or deposition of actually formation of the opaque lens fibers that causes actually the cataract. Cataractogenesis we have already seen. This so the risk factors about for cataract formation are: one is age, second one is sunlight, ultraviolet rays A and B, and severe dehydration, which can occur actually in gastrointestinal upset, diabetes, deficiency of vitamin C, A, C, E, and D, and cyanide actually, which is contained actually in the smoke of cigarettes. Actually, it's known to cause actually the cataract. And corticosteroids, when they are used for a prolonged period, so be it locally or systemically, it causes actually cataract. And there is definitely some genetic predisposition in the causation of the cataract. So as I have already mentioned, with the age, actually the semi-permeability of the capsule or the lens is impaired. And there will be an increase in insoluble proteins of the lens. Antioxidative mechanisms which help actually the lens from damage from the oxidative radicals will be less effective. And sulfhydryl containing glutathione and also ascorbic acid and are decreased in advanced years and also in cataract. So I already told you that deficiency of amino acids such as tryptophan and riboflavin, B2 vitamin, riboflavin, and also administration of certain substances like naphthalene and lactose, galactose, and thallium. These all cause actually the cataract formation. Dinitrophenol, which is actually used for slimming purpose, and insecticides and radiation can produce posterior cortical cataract, subcapsular, posterior subcapsular cataract. Toxic products in cyclitis can produce complicated cataract. Cyanide, I have already mentioned that in cigarette smoke can produce cataract. Hypocalcemia and parathyroid tetany in case of parathyroid atrophy or in inadvertent removal of actually parathyroid glands while doing actually a thyroidectomy can also cause cataract. Anticholinesterase group of drugs such as myotics, such as uh, ecothypate can cause cataract, and systemic steroids with prolonged uses, be it local or systemic, it can give rise to cataract formation. And systemic diseases such as diabetes mellitus can cause either a posterior subcapsular opacities or a cortical cataract or a nuclear cataract. Juvenile diabetes actually causes snowflake cataracts, and hypothyroidism, as I've already mentioned, it can cause flakes in cortex and subcapsular opacities, and total cataract can also be caused by hypoparathyroidism. Galactosemia, Alport syndrome, and Down syndrome, all these things, they are known to cause cataract. Traumatic cataracts, they cause actually flower-shaped cataract. Either it can be an anterior cataract or a posterior cataract, anterior to the nucleus and posterior to the nucleus. Radiation cataract, the people who are receiving radiation in the vicinity of the ocular structures can become cataractous as the time goes on. And dermatological cataracts, atopic dermatitis, ichthyosis, these are the dermatological conditions which are associated with cataract formation. And toxic agents such as corticosteroids, be it a local administration or systemic administration, anticholinesterase drugs such as ecothypate and all these things actually they can give rise to a cataract formation. Chlorpromazine is another toxic agent which can give rise to cataract. Chloroquine, busulfan, and copper in case of chalcosis, and iron in case of siderosis. Gold and cigarette smoke, all these things they can cause cataract. These are the various etiological factors. Local ocular diseases such as glaucoma, uveitis, retinitis pigmentosa, retinal detachment, and its surgery also, tumors, intraocular tumors, they can give rise to cataract formation. So classification, again, congenital and developmental cataract and acquired cataract, and we have in acquired cataract, etiological classification is either it can be a senile cataract or a traumatic cataract or complicated cataract, metabolic cataract, radiational cataract, toxic cataract, cataract associated with skin disorders and miscellaneous. Certain syndromes also they are associated with cataract formation, Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, Treacher-Collins syndrome, all these things. So morphological calcification, the cataract can either be a capsular, again, under it actually we have an anterior capsular opacities and a posterior capsular opacities, and subcapsular cataract, anterior subcapsular opacities and posterior subcapsular opacities are there. Cortical cataract, supranuclear. In case of supranuclear cataract, the cortex just above actually the nucleus, it is opacified and it is known as supranuclear cataract. And nuclear cataract and posterior polar cataracts, either it is anterior polar cataract or a posterior polar cataract. So these are the pictures of actually an immature senile cortical cataract. The first one is actually a black cataract, and this is immature senile cortical cataract, and this is also an immature cataract. So the various symptoms actually the patient may present with the cataract. As you see the figure, the photo, the person is holding the ball, trying to hold the ball. A person with cataract, he will have a vision like this. Okay. So blurring of the vision, gradual, progressive, painless loss of vision, actually, it is the cause for, it is the symptom with which actually the cataractus patients they present. So there are a lot of other causes which cause actually gradual, painless loss of vision, such as corneal opacity, refractive errors, primary open-angle glaucoma, and age-related macular degenerations. Corneal degenerations can also give rise to that. And optic atrophy, as it's not an acute onset, chronic cases actually, slow, gradual, painless loss of vision will also be there. And in case of actually cataract, because of the change in refractive index of the lens, so the patients will be frequently changing their glasses, both for the distance and also for the near. And because of irregular refraction by the different parts of the lens, so the patients may complain of polyopia, that means seeing multiple objects, or diplopia, two objects. And the patients may also have actually, may also complain of colored halos, seeing colored halos around the bulbs. So there are three conditions actually which can give rise to these colored halos. One is an intumescent cataract or a cataract, and second one is a purulent conjunctivitis, and the third one is actually you have an acute congestive stage of angle closure glaucoma. So you will have to differentiate this whenever the patient complains that he has got colored halos between these three. Suppose if it is a purulent conjunctivitis, you irrigate the conjunctival sac with saline, and the mucopus actually gets washed off, and the patient will be relieved of seeing these colored halos. In case of actually to differentiate between the acute congestive stage of angle closure glaucoma and also an intumescent glaucoma, intumescent cataract, we pass a stenopic slit in front of the patient's eye, who is looking at actually the bulb and where he is seeing actually the colored halos. In case of acute congestive state of angle closure glaucoma, the colored halos they persist. But in case of intumescent cataract, actually the colored halos they get broken. So this test is known as Finsham test. So in the examination, normally we do ask you how you can differentiate the colored halos and what are the causes for colored halos. And next thing is actually red is accentuated due to absorption of the shorter wavelengths of light. And the deterioration depends on the density and position of the opacity. Suppose if the opacity is actually in the periphery and the center axial part of the lens is free, the patient will have reasonably good vision till very late in the disease, and especially during the daytime, and actually the pupil gets constricted, and the axial, the part is, the axial part of the lens is very, very clear, and the patient will be able to see better. In case if it is a central lenticular opacity or axial opacity, so these people, they will have actually difficulty during the daytime whenever they're going to the sunlight or bright light. It's because the pupil gets constricted, and because there is a central lenticular opacity, the light rays which are coming from the infinity, they get obstructed by the lenticular opacity, and the patients, they will have more problem during bright light than in the dusk. Okay. Improvement of near vision occurs in case of nuclear sclerosis. Suppose if the patient is having a nuclear sclerosis, so there will be actually within nuclear sclerosis, there will be actually a myopic shift in the refraction. So suppose if the patient was having say +2 prior to the onset of the nuclear sclerosis, because there is a myopic shift with the onset of nuclear sclerosis, this hypermetropia will get cancelled at a time actually they will be able to see actually the distant vision very, very clearly, and also the near vision without any problem. They will not wear any glasses, just like their counterparts who will be wearing glasses for reading and also for the near work. When they attain actually 40 years or 50 years, that is when they attain presbyopia. So this sort of vision is known as a second sight. Well, you will have to rule out certain chronic conditions and which causes actually a painless progressive loss of vision. So that is glaucoma, macular degeneration, and optic atrophy. The age-related cataracts or senile cataract is very, very rare, below 50 years. If it occurs below around 45 years, we call it as less than 45 years, we call it as actually a pre-senile cataract. And universally, about 70% of the people, they get cataract, and 80 years, 80% of the people, 90 years, almost all the people actually, they get the cataract. And male to female ratio actually it's almost same actually in most of our studies, but whereas in the north coastal districts of Andhra Pradesh, actually it's seen mostly in case in females, it's more when compared to the males. Cataract is definitely a bilateral condition, though one eye actually precedes the other. And tropical countries, the onset of cataract is 10 years earlier when compared to the other countries. Clinically, two types of senile cataracts they are known. One is cortical cataract. This is caused by hydration followed by a coagulation of the proteins. This I have already mentioned while talking about telling you about the biochemistry of the cataract formation. And second one is a nuclear cataract or a sclerotic cataract. It's slow sclerosis of the nucleus actually gives rise to a nuclear cataract. So stages of maturation of cortical cataract, I have already mentioned, I think, stage of lamellar separation, incipient cataract, intumescent cataract, immature cataract, mature, hypermature, and Morgagnian hypermature cataract. So in case of lamellar separation, the earliest change is actually demarcation of the lens fibers. The lamellae, they are separated by fluid, and it can be seen actually only with the slit lamp, not a loop and torch. Okay, the pupil will appear as gray colored. Incipient cataract, the opacities with clear areas in between. So two types are noted. One is cuneiform and another one is pupillaform. In cuneiform cataract, wedge-shaped spokes of opacity, and they are mostly in the periphery, and they lie in the cortex, both in front and behind the nucleus. Opacity starts as clefts and vacuoles between the lens fibers due to hydration of the cortex. And sectorial alterations in the refractive indices, irregularities in refraction and polyopia. So what will happen is there will be alterations in the refractive indices of the various parts of the lens. And there will be irregularities in refraction from one part of the lens to another part of the lens. And that's the reason actually the patients, they will have polyopia, or they'll see multiple objects and sometimes multiple moons in the night. And usually the cuneiform cataract is seen in the lower nasal quadrant, and it can be seen only with the dilated pupil, not with undilated pupil. And these people, they complain of glare while during the bright light, and also when they drive in the night times from the oncoming headlights of a car. Pupilliform cataract actually is a saucer-shaped opacity. It is just inside the capsule and usually in the center of the visual axis in the nodal point. Gradually extends outwards to cause complete opacity of the lens. And the vision decreases considerably right from the early because opacity is at the nodal point. Intumescent cataract, as the time goes on, deeper layers uniformly white and opaque. They get opacified and they become uniformly white and opaque. And progressive hydration of the cortical layers, it causes swelling of the lens fibers. And this is an intumescent cataract, otherwise known as actually waterlogged or swollen cataract, and this can give rise to actually phacomarkic glaucoma also. AC becomes very shallow as the swollen lens actually pushes forward the iris forward. Immature cataract, uh, the color is actually grayish white, and the vision of these individuals will be from 6'9" to, say, counting fingers close to face or hand movements. And the color is grayish white, I have already mentioned. Vision is 6'9", and the iris shadow will be present in case of immature senile cortical cataracts. And when you look at the fundus with the distant direct ophthalmoscopy, when you do a distant direct ophthalmoscopy, so you see actually the cortical opacities behind you see a fundal groove. Against the fundal groove, you see actually cortical opacities. And when you do refraction for these people or retinoscopy for these people, so what you see is actually hypermetropia. Usually hypermetropia will be there in these cases. Okay. How to test for an iris shadow? This actually will ask you in the examination. You throw actually oblique beam of torchlight onto the pupil, and a crescentic shadow will form over the pupillary margin of the iris. The crescentic shadow of pupillary margin of the iris will be thrown onto the anterior capsule of the lens or grayish opacity of the lens. So clear cortex in between the opacity and iris will be present. And in case the patient doesn't have any opacity or completely transparent lens, and in case when the lens is completely opacified, the iris shadow will not form. So this is actually the diagrammatic representation of the iris shadow testing. So this is how actually the light is focused. And you see actually a crescent shadow of the pupillary margin onto the anterior capsule of the lens or the opacity of the lens. Okay. And mature senile cortical cataract, here actually opacification is complete and whole of the cortex is involved, and the color of the lens will be pearly white, and the vision will be perception of light. And when you do a distant direct ophthalmoscopy, you will not see any fundal glow. And refraction or retinoscopy is impossible in these cases because there won't be any fundal glow at all. Hypermature cataract, either it can be a sclerotic or Morgagnian type. Hypermaturity, actually the mature cataract actually progresses slowly and uninterruptedly, and the cortex becomes completely disintegrated into a pultaceous mass, and anterior capsule will be thickened, and calcification of anterior capsule will occur, and wrinkling of the anterior capsule will also occur. Lens becomes shrunken, causing iridodonesis sometimes. And suppose if the zonular dehiscence, degeneration of the zonules is there, or suspensory ligaments are there, there can be a subluxation of the lens also. And Morgagnian cataract is also one type of actually hypermature cataracts. The cortex becomes fluid and milky. The cortex is completely turned into a gets liquefied and turns into a fluid and milky area. And nucleus actually shrinks to the bottom and sinks to the bottom. And it looks like a brown mass limited above by a semicircular line after its this is a semicircular line. And the position of actually this part of the lens actually varies with the position of the head. So development of the cataract actually it may take years, or it may never mature at all. And some cases there can be a rapid maturation. And periodic examination of the people who come with early cataract and who complain of actually defective vision. So there should be a periodic examination should be done in these cases. Nuclear, the other one is actually, and again, you have got nuclear cataract. So nuclear or sclerotic cataract, central nuclear fibers become sclerosed, while the cortical fibers, they remain transparent. So ocular occurs the nuclear cataract actually it can be divided into 4 grades again, grade 1 to grade 4. So the color of the lens actually depends on which type actually, which grade actually belongs. So it can be actually a amber color or brown or black or red. Okay. So this normally affects the distant vision. So the iris shadow will not be present in these cases. And the nucleus becomes cloudy, the center appears tinted brown. I have already mentioned the various colors. And when as it matures completely, the whole lens may act as nucleus. So I told you also that there will be a myopic shift of these individuals, and their presbyopic onset will be delayed in these cases. So it is graded into 1 to 4, I have already mentioned. This is a diagrammatic representation of the slit lamp biomicroscopy, grading the nucleus, okay, into 4 grades. Grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. As sclerosis extends to the capsule, entire lens functions as nucleus. And I have already told you there's a progressive myopia due to increase in refractive index of the nucleus. Normal nucleus, it has got a refractive index of around 1.392, 1.38 to 1.41. And as the refractive index actually, if it increases, so the patient's myopic condition also will increase. Hypermaturity does never occur actually in case of nuclear cataract. So this is again a diagram showing you age-related cataract, and this is posterior subcapsular opacities, and this is what is seen on retroillumination. This is posterior subcapsular opacity, and this is again early nuclear cataract seen on retroillumination, and also here actually in on slit lamp biomicroscopic examination. And here actually again it is a cortical cataract. So these are actually the vacuoles which are deposited into the in between the lens fibers on retroillumination. That's what we see here. And here the wedge-shaped opacities which are seen in the periphery by the slit lamp examination, and this is on retroillumination. That's how we see it. And this is Christmas tree appearance of the lens in a type of cataract. And this is cuneiform cataract on diffuse illumination, and this is cuneiform cataract on retroillumination. So next we go on to actually the complicated cataract. So complicated cataract, so there can be a complicated cataract is a cataract which forms because of intraocular inflammation or due to some other systemic diseases. So there are two types of there are two causes actually for complicated cataract. One is ocular causes and another one is systemic causes. Lens opacity due to ocular inflammatory or degenerative diseases, as I have already mentioned, and it actually disturbs the nutrition of the lens. It is seen mostly in iridocyclitis, ciliary body tumors, choroiditis, degenerative myopia, anterior segment ischemia, retinitis pigmentosa, retinal detachment, and gyrate atrophy of the choroid. Inflammations of the anterior segment, they result in entire cortical involvement. Inflammations of the posterior segment, actually they cause the posterior part of the cortex is opacified, or posterior subcapsular opacities, they are actually seen. Anterior segment inflammation, here there occurs a non-descriptive opacification of the entire cataract. Cataract matures very rapidly in these cases, and posterior segment inflammation or degeneration. So it causes characteristic opacification in the posterior part of the cortex in the axial line. Posterior cortical cataract or posterior subcapsular opacities are formed in case of posterior segment inflammation. An examination with an ophthalmoscope in case of complicated cataract, we see a dark area with vaguely defined borders against the fundal background. And slit lamp examination, when you do a slit lamp biomicroscopy, irregular borders are the lenticular opacity extending towards the equator and also towards forwards towards the nucleus will be seen. And it appears like a breadcrumb with a rainbow-like display of colors, and polychromatic luster will also be seen in case of complicated cataracts. So the two characteristic features of actually complicated cataract are, one is breadcrumb appearance and second one is actually a polychromatic luster. And as the disease progresses on, there will be a uniform yellowish haze over the lens. Okay. And posterior cortical cataracts, they are very stationary for a very, very long time. But in other cases, till all the lens fibers are involved, it will be stationary. So cataract is, in these cases, it is soft and uniform. It's not hard, just like in nuclear cataract. Vision suffers very early due to the position of the opacity in the axial region. And a thorough examination is definitely necessary before surgery to rule out the diseases which actually cause the cataract formation and to treat them prior to actually treating the cataract surgery. Suppose if there is an iridocyclitis, it is always mandatory that you treat iridocyclitis with corticosteroids at least for a span of around 3 months, and the eye must be quiet at least for about 6 weeks prior to the surgery. Okay. A thorough evaluation for the cause before surgery and preoperative medical preparation is always essential in case of complicated cataract. And we have the secondary cataracts. So the secondary cataracts, it's mostly due to actually systemic disorders which cause cataract, out of which actually the diabetic cataract is almost very, very important. The diabetic cataract actually, it is a direct incidence of diabetic cataract is directly proportional to the duration or chronological age of the chronological diabetic age. Okay. Diabetic cataract, it occurs because of due to glycation and carbamylation and increased oxidative damage. In case of diabetics, the senile cataract may occur early, and it can develop very rapidly also. And in diabetics, actually, the cataract is more prevalent when compared to non-diabetic population. And the incidence of diabetes, diabetic cataract actually depends on the duration of the diabetes and progress more rapidly when compared to the normal population. And senile cataract appears very, very early in case of diabetic patients when compared to the normal individuals. And in a ill-managed diabetic will have an early onset of cataract formation when compared to the people who have their glycemic control. The diabetes mellitus, in diabetes mellitus, the cataract formation actually affects the refractive index of the lens. And the classical cataract actually, it will have an appearance of snowflakes and mostly is seen actually in young diabetics. It may show actually spontaneous resolution, or many a time actually it may choose very fast also. And nuclear opacities occur in diabetic people earlier than the others. Hyperglycemic states increase aqueous glucose levels, which diffuse into lens. And glucose is metabolized by aldose reductase into sorbitol. And this sorbitol actually accumulates in the lens and it causes actually secondary osmotic hydration overhydration of the lens substance and resulting in actually lenticular opacities. Affects refractive index of the lens also. Fluctuation of the refraction occurs. Hyperglycemia actually it causes myopia, and hypoglycemia it causes hypermetropia. Cortical fluid vacuoles develop into frank opacities in case of diabetic cataract, and rapid progress due to glycation and increased oxidative damage do occur in these cases. And the appearance will be a fine needle shaped polychromatic cortical opacities. And anterior and posterior cortex resembles snowflake like opacities. It requires the strict dioptric control to arrest this progress. Diabetic cataract actually, in some studies they say actually it's rare in young people. In some studies they say it's almost equivalent with the other population. And appropriate treatment to control hypoglycemia and progress of the cataract can be arrested or can be delayed. And this is the cataract. True diabetic cataract, it is due to disturbances of the water balance of the body. Large number of fluid vacuoles under the anterior and posterior capsules resembling snowflake cataract can occur. And fine needle-shaped polychromatic crystals or cortical opacities are seen with the treatment and suppose if the treatment is instituted and if it is we can bring back actually the strict control of the glycemia, the maturity can be controlled. Initially it manifests as myopia and then opacification occurs, and this opacification and myopia, if the diabetes is controlled, it is reversible. It is reversible. True diabetic cataract is a rare condition. It occurs in young people with acute onset of diabetes mellitus. So there are other types of actually secondary cataracts, parathyroid tetany or atrophy, hypocalcemia due to parathyroid. I have already mentioned it. Myotonic dystrophy. Here actually you see polychromatic dots like Christmas tree. And these things actually remain stationary, and the patient vision is very rarely affected. And galactosemia, there will be oil drop like opacities in the lens, and the patient's vision will not be affected usually unless it matures further. And it can be actually prevented, or the opacity can be targeted by actually avoiding the milk products and milk products. Down syndrome, atopic cataract, these things, Down syndrome also is associated with cataract formation. Atopic cataract, it is seen actually in ichthyosis and atopic dermatitis. And X-rays and gamma rays actually, these radiations, they are actually given in the vicinity of the ocular structures. So there can be actually a cataract formation. Now, the onset of linear accelerator, actually, we are able to focus exactly where we want to give the radiation. And the incidence of actually cataract has come down after the onset of after we have attained the linear accelerators for the treatment of malignant diseases. Heat. So infrared rays, usually indirectly through pigment of the iris or ciliary body. So rare in albinos, and small disc of central opacity occurs, then extending to the remaining cortex. So these people actually in glass blowers factories. So these people, they are actually affected with this heat cataract, and a true exfoliation will be present in case of the glass blowers factory workers. Irradiation cataract affecting the development lens fibers, X-rays, gammas, with this we have already seen. Next, we have another important aspect of cataract is actually traumatic cataract. So traumatic cataract, it is as a sequelae to the blunt injury, be it actually a perforating injury or be it actually a concussion injury. Traumatic damage to the lens fibers, rupture in the lens capsule, anterior capsule of the lens, and the aqueous will be there will be influx of aqueous humor into the lens, and this causes a hydration of the lens fibers and consequent opacification. A rosette-shaped cataract will be formed in these cases. So the star-shaped cortical sutures are delineated initially, and feathery lines of opacities radiate from them. Okay. So Vossius ring is another thing which actually seen in case of concussion injuries, and this is given as a short notes 2 marks question by you people in the examination. Vossius ring is nothing but imprinting of pigment over the anterior capsular capsule in case of concussion injuries. So it will be a constricted pupil initially, and after some time actually the pupil dilates and it attains actually a traumatic mydriasis. And flower-shaped opacities in the posterior subcapsular cataract along with posterior sutures result in rosette form or flower form. So either it can be an anterior rosette or a posterior rosette. It may remain stationary or progress to maturity in some cases. And the management of traumatic cataract actually is always surgery. There is no medical management for these cases. And you will have to rule out actually subluxation prior to putting your knife on the patient, because a subluxated lens, the conventional, the routine, extracapsular cataract extraction nowadays we are doing, or in that type of cataract extraction such as small incision cataract surgery or emulsification, it is very, very difficult in case of subluxated lenses. So traumatic cataract, this is how actually a rosette form occurs. And this is again a traumatic cataract, a concussional injury showing a posterior rosette and jonular dialysis to the left. Here actually you see the jonular dialysis. This is the lens border and this is jonular dialysis. And here again the traumatic cataract due to perforation of the lens and a foreign body traveled all these areas, and this is traumatic cataract that is seen. And this is Vossius ring, as I have mentioned. It's an imprint of the constricted pupillary margin onto the anterior capsule of the lens in case of concussion injuries. And this is flower-shaped cataract caused due to blunt injuries, blunt trauma, I have already mentioned. And this is a cataract caused by severe penetrating traumas. This is a sunflower cataract. This is Christmas tree cataract. So next we go on to, before going on to the congenital cataract, we take up actually the management of the adult acquired cataract. Actually, the management either can be a medical management or surgical management. Mostly it is surgical. In case actually the patient is happy with his daily routine and if he doesn't want surgery, we may rather try to enhance his visual capabilities by some means or the other. So the first and foremost is, suppose if the opacity is in the center, we ask the patient actually to read in bright light. Suppose if the opacity is in the center, we ask him to keep actually the light just behind and by the side of his head, so that there will be dim light and there will be relative pupillary dilatation and paraaxial lens fibers which are clear, they will come into the focus and the patient will be able to see better. Okay. And secondly, we can as well instill mydriatic drops in these cases. So there will be a pupillary dilatation and the patient will be able to see better with for his daily routine. So the usual mydriatics which we use for this purpose is, one is phenylephrine 5% solution, or tropicamide 0.5% solution can be used, 1 drop in the morning and 1 drop in the night. Suppose if the opacities are in the periphery, okay, wedge-shaped opacities. So in the dim light, actually, these people, they will have actually difficulty to move around because of the relative dilatation or mydriasis which occurs in the dim light, and the opacities they come into the patient's focusing field. Okay. In such cases, what we advise is actually we ask them to these people to read in the bright light, and secondly, we ask them actually to wear actually dark glasses when they move in the sunlight, so that so these people they will have a better vision. And second, there are certain drugs actually which can give rise to retardation of these lenticular opacities, such as salts of calcium and potassium salts of iodide. And aspirin administered for a long period, actually, they say that it's going to reduce the progression of actually the cataract formation. Uh, Vitamin A and vitamin C and vitamin E, these things also in abundant quantities, they say that actually it has got some effect over progression of the reticular opacity, though it's still inconclusive. And suppose if it is an immature senile cortical cataract and the patient is having the trouble in his doing daily routine. So what we do is we do the retinoscopy after full dilatation and do a post-mydriatic test and try to give the glasses to these people. Here, actually, we correct both the distant vision and also the near vision. And usually, the most of the people, they are very, very happy if it is in early or immature senile cortical cataract. Suppose when it moves on to the mature senile cortical cataract, the prescription of glasses will not be tenable in these cases. Okay, so suppose all these measures they will not actually, they are not efficacious, and the patient is still having the trouble to read or to do his daily routine. Okay, in such cases we resort to the surgery. So before going on for surgery, we have to evaluate these cases fully, so that the outcome of our cataract surgery will be good, and the patient will be also happy. So the thing is actually initially you'll have to examine these patients with slit lamp biomicroscopy and try to eliminate any infection in the nearby, in the vicinity of your operative field. Okay, you will have to see whether there is any blepharitis regarding lids, whether there is any blepharitis or mebonitis, or whether there is any conjunctival discharge or conjunctival hyperemia, or any concretions, or any foreign bodies. All these things you will have to see. And again, you'll have to see in the cornea whether there are any fresh or old capies, keratic precipitates. And in the iris, actually, you'll have to see whether there are any posterior synechiae. And in the lens, you'll have to evaluate actually the morphology of the lens and also the position of the lenticular opacities. So this helps a long way actually in our surgeries. Okay. And then we'll have to dilate the pupil, because the dilatation of the pupil is very, very important. If you have a fully dilated pupil, it becomes very, very easy for us to do the surgery. Okay. So you'll have to dilate the pupil. At least 8 millimeters of dilatation is important for doing the cataract surgery. Okay. So we do actually, even if it is less, even in dilated pupils also sometimes we do it by having a pupillary dilators and all these things. But to have a comfortable surgery on the table, both for the patient and also both for the surgeon, we need to have actually pupillary dilatation of around 8 millimeters diameter. So that gives us actually the best access for doing the cataract surgery. Okay. So then you will see actually the fundus examination. You'll have to see how the vitreous is, how the retina is, how the disc, blood vessels, and peripapillary area and macula also will have to be evaluated very, very well, because the macula is also very, very important in the vision. So what we do is actually we see the macula, look for any age-related macular degenerations or any hemorrhages in that, or any macular pole or macular cyst, all these things. So these things, they will, if present, they will definitely compromise the result of your cataract surgery. Okay. So next, you will have to see the periphery of the retina also. In case of myopes, there can be degenerations or retinal holes, all these things. These things they will have to manage prior to the cataract surgery with the lasers, so that there will not be any retinal detachment in the post-operative period. So after this, we will have to see whether there is any infection in the nasolacrimal passages. We'll have to do the syringing or a registration test. Usually syringing is always better. Suppose if there is a dacrocystitis or a block somewhere in the nasolacrimal duct, and evidence of dacrocystitis, and by registration, if you see actually there is pus which is emanating out of your punctum. So in such cases, actually, you'll have to do a dacrocystorhinostomy or dacrocystectomy initially, and a month later, you can plan your cataract surgery. Okay. And next, you'll have to see for any infection in the vicinity of the ocular field, such as a caries tooth is a contraindication for doing actually the surgery immediately. And CSOM is another thing which is contraindicated, a contraindication for doing these surgeries. So unless these things they are cleared, we won't do this surgery, because any infection which occurs in the post-operative period of a intraocular operation, it will be proved to be catastrophic, and the patient, the infection will go with galloping speed. The infection will go with galloping speed, and the patient will lose the eye. And nowadays, with the lot of consumer awareness and all these things, a lot of litigations will crop up, and we'll be in a lot of trouble. So we stop here. To recapitulate what we have already said, we have seen about the classification of cataract and uh, stages of cataract formation, and the differences between all these cataracts, what a differences between nuclear cataract and a cortical cataract. Nuclear cataract is a hard cataract. Cortical cataract is a soft cataract. There will be a myopic shift in case of cortical cataract, nuclear cataract, and hypermetropic shift in case of myopic cataract, cortical cataract. Okay. And the hypernuclear cortical cataract will be either it is grayish white or milky white or pearly white. In case of nuclear cataract, it will be either yellow, brown, black, or red. Okay. So this we have already seen, and how to test for actually an iris shadow I have already told you, and we have shown you the various pictures of various types of cataracts and various symptoms of the cataracts, and classification of the cataract also we have seen, and the differential diagnosis we have already mentioned, uh, risk factors, biochemistry of the cataract formation, cataractogenesis, and all these things we have seen. The next class, I'm going to tell you about, I'll show you some surgeries. I'll tell you how we do actually the surgical management of cataract formation. And later on, we go on to the congenital cataract, most likely for the time permits, and the complications, post-operative complications, perioperative complications, early pre-operative complications, early post-operative complications, late post-operative complications. All these things we'll be dealing with in the next class tomorrow. Later on, maybe a congenital cataract, if time permits, we'll talk about it. And so later on, I think anomaly is associated with your lens. So that may I will take it most likely on Monday. Tomorrow, I don't think I will be able to finish it. So later on, we'll go on to the glaucoma. If you have any doubts, please feel free to ask me. No doubts? Okay. Have a nice day. Shalom.
Good.